Hello YouTube, WJ's Handy Dad here, and today I'm going to show you how to take an ordinary piece of Kydex like this, and I'm going to show you how to create a custom center console area for your police car. Now, if you remember, I have a 300 center console in here, but of course this area here is, when it comes from the junkyard, this area is empty, so you have to do something. So if you remember, I put 2 pieces of Kydex because I didn't have one big enough. But basically you need a piece of Kydex about this big, so it's about 13.5 from front to back. It starts at 9 inches across and drops down to about 7.25. The reason I did cardboard is it's a lot easier to work with when you are trying to make your template. If you just started with the Kydex, you could make some really expensive mistakes. So cut the cardboard, make sure it's fitting, and there's your template. And then when you cut the Kydex, you'll follow these lines and then heat it up and it'll form down there. And then just like I did before, you just drill holes, put your mounting hardware in, and then I'm probably going to redo this so that these switches are just integrated into here rather than having this separate box. All of the Kydex I've ever seen is two-sided, so there's a textured side and then the smooth side. I generally use the textured side as the appearance side. I just think that's not going to look as good. I guess if you were going to cover this or paint this or do something to it, it might work, but this will be my up side on the car. So we will mark up this side and cut and then smooth the edges if I need to, and then I'll lay it in there, heat it up, and when you heat it, it'll kind of melt down and form to the shape, and then as it cools, it'll hold that shape. This one's a thicker piece. You really need the thickest Kydex you can get for this type of work. If you get something thinner, it's just gonna be too flimsy. But you see, like, this is pretty sturdy stuff here. Downside is it's harder to cut, so you're gonna need a Dremel tool or a jigsaw or something like that to cut with. So I'm gonna get my template on here and make sure it's perfectly lined up, and then we're gonna just draw our rough outline of it. And it's usually a good idea to cut it larger, and then you can always fine-tune it. If you cut too much off, obviously you can't put it back on. And then you see, even though we cut straight through, sometimes it melts itself back together. Which is nice for it not falling on the ground. And always save your scraps. You never know when you'll need a piece. If you're working on cars or really anything, the Kydex kind of comes in handy to fix stuff. There's our rough draft. Like I said, I'll clean up the edges a little bit. The visible side looks better, obviously, than that. With my first test fit, I'm going to heat this up with the heat gun. Just basically moving it back and forth. I'm going to do that off camera. It's going to take a while. Get it where it's hot enough that it's pliable. And then I'm going to lay it in the car and try to get that shape to it. Heat it up so it's flexible. You can also do that in the oven if you don't have a wife. If you have a wife and you do that in the oven, she will probably kill you because it leaves a bad smell. Also, you notice I'm wearing gloves. That's because this is actually very, very hot. And so what I'm trying to do is get that shape to take right there. And then I can fine tune the edges. Also want to give a shout out to Tony at Alameda Holsters. He is quite the Kydex expert. So you see it's keeping that shape now. And it's good, we want it to be a tight fit like that. I don't want it loose and rattly. So now what I would do is squeeze it in and then put those mounting points in there. May or may not even need ones in the front, to be honest. You know, before I had 4 of those push pins in here, and that was because I had 2 separate pieces of Kydex. But with this jammed up against there like that, I think 2 in the rear will keep this from moving. So the next big decision is, can I squeeze 2 of these in here, and how do I want to address this? Do I want to just drill holes in my Kydex now and put these switches in there, or do I want to do what I did before where I just have this kind of sitting up here? The obvious advantage to doing it this way is if I change my mind later, I don't have holes in here, but if I drill holes in this, those switches will be more professionally mounted and look more factory. So I will have to think about that, and no matter what I do, this backup sensor, there's not a nice easy way to mount it on the Kydex. Some of the stuff you want to do off the car is drill your cup holder, and like I said, I'm going to go ahead, instead of using this, I'm going to drill into the Kydex these holes. These are 3/4 inch, and this is 4-inch hole saw, and that will be small enough that it'll have a lip for that. So I figure right about there. See, I've pre-marked that. And then for these holes, you want to have them level, and they probably need to be right around there because of the switch having clearance behind it. If you put them up too high, well, probably aesthetically they'd look better there. You're not going to have the clearance behind them. Struggles with the battery, got it cut out. The switch holes, I've got them 1.5 inches apart, so that should give enough space between the switches where they won't look like they're kind of congested. Also have it on the flat spot here, so there's definitely going to be clearance underneath it, but I was going to put them up here initially, but then I realized if I put them on the curve, the switches won't seat properly because they need to be in a flat surface. So I'm going to put them right there. And there's 2, and they didn't tear up, thankfully. Alright, I fished the wires through here for my switches, and they'll just clip into here. But this piece will snap up under here, and then push in down like that, and then clip into the existing spot. I'll put another clip on that side, and like I said, I think that will be enough to hold it, and I may have to remount these holes just a little bit. They seem to have shrunk up after drilling. And I moved this up into here because there's really nothing that seems to fit in there very well. And I think that looks a whole lot better than what I had before. So the trick was just finding the piece of Kydex that was long enough, because most of your Kydex comes in 12-inch by 12-inch or smaller, so I had to find one that was, I think it was 24 by 12 that I bought. So a lot of waste to get a 13.5 by 9, but in the end looks good. And I've got room I can add, more switches if I ever add any other lights or anything. So hope the video was helpful. Appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and please tell your friends about my channel. Thank you very much.